Evelyn had just moved into her new apartment 3 months ago, and it already felt like her sanctuary. It wasn't large, but the hardwood floors, warm-toned walls, and the view of the city lights from her bedroom window gave it character. After a long day at work, she loved coming home, lighting a candle, putting on soft music, and sinking into her couch with a book. For a young woman living alone, this was her dream: privacy, independence, and peace. One evening, she decided to do a little cleaning. She dusted the shelves, wiped down the counters, and finally made her way to the bedroom. That's when she noticed it. The smoke detector above her bed had a faint green light blinking slowly, something she didn't remember seeing before. She shrugged at first, telling herself she was just overthinking. But as she stared, unease crept in. The smoke detector in her living room had a red light, not green. Why would they be different? Curiosity nagged at her. Evelyn dragged a chair over and climbed up, balancing carefully as she inspected the device. Her breath caught when she realized that the sensor wasn't flat, it had depth. It looked more like a small, glossy lens than a smoke detector component. For a moment, she stood frozen, her heart thudding in her ears. The thought hit her like a brick: what if this isn't a smoke detector at all? Hands trembling, she unscrewed the plastic casing and nearly dropped it when she saw the wires inside weren't connected to any smoke detection system. Instead, there was a tiny circuit board, a memory card slot, and a miniature camera lens pointing downward, directly at her bed. The air felt sucked out of the room. Panic set in. She scrambled off the chair, her knees weak, and sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the device in her hands. Memories flooded her mind: the nights she changed clothes in this very room, the mornings she had rushed out of bed half-dressed, the times she had cried alone, thinking no one in the world could see her. The thought that someone, somewhere, had been watching made her skin crawl. She wanted to scream but no sound came out. Trying to keep her hands steady, she pulled out her phone and typed the model number printed on the back of the device. Within seconds, her worst fear was confirmed. It was a Wi-Fi-enabled hidden surveillance camera, disguised as a smoke detector. She scrolled down the product page in disbelief. The description proudly advertised how easily it could blend into any home, streaming live video straight to an app. Evelyn felt sick. Who had put this here? The landlord, a maintenance worker, the previous tenant. Her mind spun with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. She quickly covered the lens with a towel and unplugged her Wi-Fi router, terrified that whoever was watching might still be connected, seeing her every move. With shaking fingers, she dialed the police. Her voice cracked as she explained what she had found. The operator stayed calm, instructing her to leave the device untouched and wait for officers to arrive. Every second felt like an eternity. Evelyn sat in her living room, every creak of the apartment making her flinch, her eyes darting to every corner, every vent, every outlet, wondering how many more cameras might be hidden around her. When the officers finally arrived, they carefully examined the device. One of them muttered under his breath, "You'd be surprised how often we see this." That made Evelyn's stomach churn even more. They assured her the camera would be taken for investigation, but they couldn't promise they would catch whoever planted it. These things were often bought online anonymously and installed without a trace. That night, Evelyn didn't sleep. She left all the lights on, her curtains drawn tightly, and her bedroom door shut. But the shadows still felt alive, and the silence pressed in like a weight. The comfort and security she once felt in her apartment were gone, replaced with a constant unease. Every time she looked at the ceiling, she imagined another lens staring back at her. From that day forward, her habits changed. She inspected every rental she ever lived in, scanning for hidden cameras in clocks, outlets, vents, and detectors. She covered her laptop camera with tape and never fully trusted the places she stayed in again. What should have been her safe haven had been violated, leaving her with the sickening realization that privacy was far more fragile than she ever believed. Jordan had been working the late shift at the roadside motel for almost 2 years. It wasn't glamorous, but the paycheck covered his bills, and the quiet hours gave him time to study. The motel was the kind of place people stopped at out of convenience, not comfort. The paint was chipped, the carpet smelled faintly of mildew, and the neon sign outside buzzed all night. But Jordan knew the place inside out, the quirks of the locks, the regular guests, and the strange items people left behind. One morning, after a particularly busy night, he was assigned to clean room 16. The guests had checked out early, leaving behind a mess of fast food wrappers and empty soda bottles. As he gathered the trash, something on the wall caught his attention, a phone charger plugged into the outlet beside the bed. Nothing unusual about that, except it didn't look like the cheap plastic chargers most people carried. This one was sleek, heavy, and brand new. Curious, Jordan picked it up. It felt odd, denser than any charger he'd held before. When he turned it over, his stomach twisted. A tiny black circle on the side looked suspiciously like a camera lens. He leaned closer, and sure enough, it wasn't just a dot, it was glass. He felt a rush of dread. He had heard about hidden cameras before but had never actually seen one. Trying to keep calm, he looked around the room, his eyes darting to the bed. The charger's angle pointed directly at where guests would sit, sleep, or worse, change clothes. A cold chill ran through him as he imagined all the people who had stayed in this room completely unaware they were being filmed. Jordan slipped the device into a plastic bag and carried it to the front desk, where his manager was sipping coffee and scrolling through his phone. "I found this in room 16, Jordan said, placing the bag on the counter. "It's not a real charger. It's a camera." His manager glanced at it briefly and shrugged. "Probably just something a guest left behind. Don't overthink it." Jordan's jaw tightened. "No, you don't understand. This thing records people. Someone planted it here. Who knows how long it's been there." But the manager waved him off. "We've got bigger problems than some weird gadget. Just toss it in lost and found." The dismissive attitude made Jordan's blood boil. Did his manager really not care, or was he hiding something? That night, Jordan couldn't shake the image of the tiny lens staring at the bed. He imagined families staying there, couples, or lone travelers, all unknowingly recorded. The thought made him sick. A few days later, while sweeping the lobby, Jordan overheard a guest near the vending machine talking on the phone. The man's voice was low, but his words made Jordan's skin crawl. "Yeah, I've got footage from a couple nights ago. You can see everything." Jordan froze. His pulse raced. Could this be the person responsible? His instinct screamed at him to confront the man, but fear held him back. If guests were involved, maybe this wasn't just a one-off. Maybe it was bigger than he realized. From that night on, Jordan started noticing more. He saw strangers loitering in the parking lot longer than necessary, people checking into specific rooms, and odd requests at the front desk. The motel suddenly felt like a trap, a place where privacy was an illusion and people's most vulnerable moments were being exploited. Jordan reported the situation again, this time suggesting they call the police. His manager dismissed him once more, even hinting that stirring up trouble might cost him his job. That was the breaking point. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Jordan had already made up his mind. He packed up his things, walked out of the motel, and didn't look back. The job wasn't worth the guilt or the constant paranoia. He left the hidden charger with a friend who knew a cop, hoping it would at least be investigated. Even after he moved on, the memory haunted him. He couldn't check into hotels or motels without scanning every outlet, every vent, every corner of the room. He would target mirrors to make sure they weren't two-way glass, and he always inspected charges, alarm clocks, and smoke detectors. What should have been simple lodging now carried the weight of suspicion and dread. Jordan never found out who planted the charger camera in room 16, or how many others had been hidden in the motel's rooms. But the thought that strangers might have been watching countless guests, streaming or recording them without consent, was enough to keep him awake at night. What was supposed to be a routine shift had opened his eyes to a horrifying truth: sometimes, you're never as alone as you think. For Maya, the gym was more than just a place to exercise, it was her escape. Between work stress and the chaos of everyday life, those evening sessions gave her a sense of control and peace. She loved the rhythm of her workouts, the steady thump of music in her earbuds, and the feeling of accomplishment after every session. She especially valued the women's locker room, where she could shower, change, and take a moment to breathe without judgment. It felt safe, private, at least, that's what she thought. One evening after a long day at work, Maya went through her usual routine. She jogged on the treadmill, lifted weights, and then headed to the locker room. She was one of the last people there, most had already gone home. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above, casting long shadows across the tiled walls. As she set her gym bag on the bench, she noticed something strange. Up near the ceiling vent in the corner of the room, there was a small black dot. At first, she dismissed it as a screw or maybe dirt stuck in the vent's grate. But as she moved around the locker room, she noticed how it seemed to catch the light, gleaming faintly under the harsh bulbs. The longer she stared at it, the more unsettled she felt. Something in her gut told her it wasn't just a piece of hardware. Heart pounding, she dragged a bench beneath the vent, climbed up carefully, and leaned closer. Her breath hitched. The dot wasn't dirt, it was a lens. A camera lens, angled down toward the benches and lockers where women changed clothes every day. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. She nearly lost her balance, gripping the bench tightly as nausea washed over her. The locker room, the one place where she and other women felt secure enough to be vulnerable, had been violated. Shaking, she climbed down and stared at the vent from below. Now that she knew, it seemed so obvious. How long had it been there? Weeks, months, and how many women had been recorded without their knowledge? The thought made her stomach churn. Panicked, she rushed out to the front desk, her voice trembling as she demanded to speak with the manager. The young woman at the counter looked confused but went to fetch him. When the manager arrived, Maya wasted no time. There's a camera in the women's locker room. In the vent. You need to call the police right now. The manager's eyes widened, and he raised his hands defensively. A camera? That's impossible. We'd never allow something like that. But Maya could see something flicker in his expression. Shock, yes, but also a hint of guilt. He promised to look into it, but his tone felt hollow, like someone trying to control a situation rather than solve it. Unsatisfied, Maya left the gym and drove straight to the nearest police station. Her voice shook as she explained what she'd found. Officers went with her back to the gym, examined the vent, and discovered not just one, but several hidden cameras planted around the locker room. Each one was carefully wired to blend in, nearly invisible unless you knew exactly what to look for. The investigation revealed something far worse. The cameras had been recording for months, maybe longer, and the footage wasn't just being stored locally, it was being uploaded and sold online. Thousands of private, intimate moments had been captured and exploited without the victim's knowledge. When the truth came out, the community was horrified. Women who had trusted the gym with their privacy felt betrayed and violated. Many broke down, realizing they had been unknowingly exposed to strangers. And the sickening part, the police discovered that the mastermind wasn't some random intruder sneaking in after hours, it was the gym owner himself. He had personally overseen the installation of the cameras, profiting off the footage while smiling in the faces of his customers. For Maya, the betrayal cut deep. The gym had been her safe space, a place where she felt strong and in control. Now it was tainted forever. She never went back, canceling her membership immediately. But the scars lingered. Even years later, she couldn't fully shake the paranoia. Whenever she entered a public restroom, locker room, or even a hotel, Her eyes darted around the ceiling, searching for hidden lenses. She found herself checking vents, outlets, mirrors, and smoke detectors, unable to relax until she was sure she was alone. The violation had stolen more than just her trust. It had stolen her peace of mind. Privacy, she realized, wasn't something anyone could take for granted. And once it's broken, it leaves a wound that never truly heals.